sweetened mishap. Delilah Porter's hands trembled as she applied the final gold leaf to the 60-year passion fruit and white chocolate mousse cake. The grand ballroom of the Mera Palace Hotel buzzed with anticipation for Mera's engagement celebration, the most prestigious event in the city this season. 5 minutes until presentation. "Miss Porter," whispered one of the kitchen staff, causing Delilah to flinch. 3 years of culinary school, 5 years of apprenticeships, and countless sleepless nights had led to this moment. The Mera family had chosen her small dessert studio over nationally renowned pastry chefs, a miracle that could catapult her fledgling business out of debt. The eviction notice taped to her apartment door flashed in her mind. "Just breathe," she murmured, adjusting her chef's coat. The ballroom fell silent as Delilah wheeled in her creation. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the gathering of India's elite politicians, film stars, and business tycoons. At the center table sat Sanjay Mera, the hotel magnate. Beaming at his daughter Gia and her fiancés beside them sat a man Delilah hadn't noticed during the planning meeting, tall, with thoughtful eyes and an understated elegance that contrasted with the ostentatious displays of wealth surrounding him. He was the only one not fixated on his phone or engaged in superficial conversation. Instead, he observed the room with quiet interest. As Delilah approached the main table, disaster struck. A waiter backed into her path, causing her to swerve sharply. The cake stand tilted. She lunged forward, but it was too late. The masterpiece slid sideways, collapsing into a heap of cream, fruit, and shattered sugar decorations, directly in front of the Mera family. Gasps echoed through the ballroom. Jaya's perfectly made-up face contorted in horror. Sanjay Mera stood abruptly, his expression thunderous. I'm so sorry," Delilah stammered, her vision blurring with tears as she frantically tried to salvage pieces of the ruined cake. "This is unacceptable," Sanjay's voice boomed. "Do you know how important this day is?" The mysterious man at the table rose calmly. "Sanjay, remember your blood pressure," he said, his voice measured but carrying authority. "Accidents happen." He knelt beside Delilah, gathering cake fragments onto a plate. "Actually, this looks delicious, deconstructed. Very avant-garde, Rohan, please." "This is ridiculous," Sanjay protested. Rohan ignored him, taking a fork and tasting the collapsed dessert. His eyes widened slightly. "This is extraordinary," he said, offering a bite to give a try it. Reluctantly, the bride-to-be tasted the cake, her expression softening. "It is good," she admitted. "Sometimes perfection is overrated," Rohan announced to the room, serving more impromptu deconstructed cake portions to nearby guests. "Imperfection has character, like life." Laughter rippled through the crowd. The tension dissipated as guests followed Rohan's lead, sampling the fallen dessert with curious delight. Within minutes, what had been a catastrophe transformed into an unexpected highlight. Later, as Delilah packed her supplies, humiliation still burning in her chest despite the salvaged situation, Rohan appeared in the kitchen doorway. "You have remarkable talent," he said simply. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Kapoor, Rohan Kapoor." He handed her a business card. "But I wasn't being kind. That was genuinely the best dessert I've tasted in years." Delilah accepted the card, noticing the minimalist design with just his name and a phone number. "You're in the hospitality business too?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Something like that. I invest in potential." He turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, I'm hosting a charity gala next month. Would you be interested in catering the desserts?" Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving Delilah staring at the elegant card in her trembling hands, wondering if this disaster might somehow have been a blessing in disguise. Asterisk whispers of opportunity. The address on the invitation led Delilah to a renovated colonial mansion in the city's historic district. She double-checked her phone, certain there must be a mistake. The Somerset Foundation Charity Gala was one of the season's most exclusive events, typically catered by internationally renowned chefs. "You're in the right place," said a woman in a tailored suit, clipboard in hand. "You must be Miss Porter. The kitchen staff has been expecting you." The kitchen was a bustling wonderland of stainless steel and marble. A team of sous chefs worked efficiently, but paused when she entered. "The dessert specialist is here," announced the head chef, a stern-looking woman with salt and pepper hair. "Mr. Kapoor specifically requested you handle the entire sweet course. We've cleared the pastry station as instructed." Delilah's heart raced as she unpacked her tools. After the Mera disaster, she'd expected her reputation to be in tatters. Instead, here she was, preparing desserts for the city's most influential people again. "Need anything, just ask," said a friendly sous chef named Prisha. "Mr. Kapoor was very clear that you should have whatever you require." "Does Mr. Kapoor personally arrange all the catering details?" Delilah asked, trying to sound casual. Prisha laughed. "Never. He usually leaves everything to his event team. This is the first time he's been involved in the menu planning." As evening approached, Delilah surveyed her creations. Lavender honey panna cotta with gold dust, cardamom-infused chocolate tarts, and her signature rose and pistachio petit. Each dessert told a story of her journey, techniques learned in Paris, flavors inspired by her grandmother's recipes, presentations influenced by her fine arts background. The ballroom doors opened, and guests in evening wear streamed in. Delilah remained hidden in the kitchen, watching through the service entrance as champagne flowed and conversation hummed. She spotted Rohan moving through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries, yet somehow standing apart from the performative socializing. Ms. Porter, a server, appeared at her elbow. Mr. Kapoor has requested your presence in the ballroom when the desserts are served. My presence, but his instructions were quite specific. When the dessert course was announced, Delilah found herself ushered into the ballroom, her chef's coat exchanged for a borrowed black cocktail dress that Prisha insisted was kept for emergencies. Nervously smoothing the unfamiliar fabric, she watched as servers presented her creations to appreciative murmurs and raised eyebrows. Here she is. Rohan's voice cut through her anxiety as he approached. Everyone, this is Delilah Porter, the artist behind tonight's desserts. Suddenly, she was surrounded by guests asking about her techniques and flavors. A famous restaurant critic requested her card. The owner of a luxury hotel chain wanted to discuss potential collaboration. I don't understand, she whispered when she finally found a moment alone with Rohan. Why did you do this for me? Do what? His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. This opportunity, after I ruined the Mera engagement dessert. You didn't ruin anything. You've created something unexpected and delightful. He guided her toward the terrace doors. Walk with me. Outside, the garden was illuminated by string lights. The night air carried the scent of jasmine. I've been in business for 15 years, Rohan said, his voice softening. I've learned that the most interesting opportunities often arise from apparent failures. Is that why you invest in potential? She asked, remembering his words from their first meeting precisely. He studied her for a moment. Tell me, what would you do if money wasn't an obstacle? The question caught her off guard. I'd open a proper patisserie, she admitted, not just taking orders from my apartment kitchen. A place where dessert is elevated to an art form, accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. Interesting. He nodded thoughtfully. And what's stopping you? Reality. She laughed humorlessly. Bank loans, rent costs, equipment expenses. I'm already in debt from culinary school. Rohan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and sighed. I need to make a speech soon, but this conversation isn't finished. He reached into his jacket and handed her an envelope. My foundation is looking to invest in promising local businesses. The details are inside. Think about it. As he walked away, Delilah opened the envelope. Inside was an invitation to present a business proposal to the Somerset Foundation's entrepreneurship initiative, and a check that would cover 3 months of her overdue rent. Rising from a Shiza, Somerset Foundation's office occupied the top floor of a gleaming skyscraper overlooking the city. Delilah clutched her portfolio, stomach churning as the elevator climbed. The receptionist directed her to a conference room where 3 people awaited. A sharp-suited woman introduced as the foundation's financial director, a bearded man identified as the marketing strategist, and Rohan Kapoor, who greeted her with a nod that somehow calmed her racing pulse. Miss Porter, please share your vision, the financial director prompted after pleasantries were exchanged. For the next 30 minutes, Delilah presented her business plan, detailed spreadsheets, projected growth charts, and carefully crafted mood boards for Crumb and Honey, her dream She described a space where traditional techniques would meet innovative flavors, where customers could watch pastry artists at work through an open kitchen concept. Your financial projections seem optimistic, commented the financial director, scrutinizing the numbers. But her social media presence is impressive, countered the marketing strategist, scrolling through photos of Delilah's creations that had garnered thousands of followers. Despite her limited resources, throughout, Rohan remained mostly silent, his expression revealing nothing. When Delilah finished, he asked just one question. Why is this important to you? She hesitated, then decided on honesty. My father owned a small bakery in our hometown. After he died, my mother sold it to pay medical bills. He taught me that food isn't just sustenance, it's memory, it's comfort. Every dessert I make carries a piece of that legacy. The meeting concluded with handshakes and promises to be in touch soon. As Delilah gathered her materials, Rohan lingered. Are you free this evening? He asked unexpectedly. That night found them at a small rooftop restaurant far from the city's upscale districts. String lights illuminated mismatched tables, and the aroma of street food mingled with the scent of rain-washed concrete. My favorite place in the city, Rohan explained, ordering for them from a waiter who greeted him by name. The owner started with a food cart 15 years ago. I was his first investor. Over plates of spiced lamb and saffron rice, they exchanged stories. Delilah learned that Rohan had built his fortune not through inheritance, but through strategic investments in overlooked ventures. He spoke of growing up in a middle-class neighborhood, studying economics on scholarship and working 3 jobs to fund his first investment. And you, he asked, what shaped you beyond your father's bakery? The night deepened as Delilah shared her journey, the scholarship to culinary school that changed her life, the challenges of being a woman in professional kitchens, the small triumphs that kept her going when debt and doubt threatened to overwhelm her. It's nearly midnight, she realized suddenly, glancing at her watch. Time has a way of disappearing in good company, Rohan remarked, signaling for the check. As his driver took them back toward her apartment, rain began to fall, painting the city in shimmering reflections. The committee will make their decision next week, he said as the car stopped outside her building, regardless of the outcome. Thank you for the opportunity, she replied, surprised by the evening's easy intimacy. Delilah, he called as she stepped out. The dessert you made for the gala, the rose and pistachio one. It reminded me of something my grandmother used to make when I visited her in Mumbai. 3 days later, an email arrived from the Somerset Foundation. Crumb and Honey had been approved for their entrepreneurship program, complete with startup funding, a prime location in a developing food district, and mentorship from industry experts. The following weeks blurred into a frenzy of activity. A vacant corner storefront transformed into Delilah's vision. Warm copper accents, handcrafted wooden tables, and a gleaming open kitchen where customers could watch pastry magic unfold. She hired 3 assistants, including who had quit her previous position to join this new venture. Throughout, Rohan remained involved from a distance, offering advice on lease negotiations and connecting her with suppliers, yet never overstepping or claiming ownership of her success. Their late-night conversations continued, sometimes at the half-finished shop, sometimes over phone calls that stretched until dawn, evolving from business discussions into exchanges about books, travel, and dreams deferred. On the night before Crumb and Honey's grand opening, Delilah worked alone, perfecting the display cases. A knock at the door revealed Rohan holding a small package. A good luck gift, he said, handing it to her. Inside was an antique copper whisk, its handle engraved with her father's favorite saying, "Sweetness rises from heat." "How did you know this quote?" she asked, throat tightening with emotion. "You mentioned it once, when you spoke about him." He hesitated, then added, "I've never met anyone who listens to their heart the way you do, Delilah. It's rare and remarkable." As he turned to leave, their fingers brushed, sending an undeniable current between them, but neither acknowledged it, both aware of the complicated boundaries between benefactor and recipient, between professional gratitude and something deeper taking root. Sweet confessions. Crumb and Honey's opening exceeded Delilah's wildest expectations. Lines formed around the block each morning. Food critics published glowing reviews, and social media influencers made pilgrimages to photograph her artisanal creations. Most rewarding were the regular customers who came for quiet moments with coffee and pastry, finding sanctuary amid the bustle of city life. 1 month into operations, Delilah received a thick envelope bearing the Somerset Foundation's letterhead. Inside was a formal notification. The foundation was transferring full ownership of Crumb and Honey to her, forgiving the startup loan that should have taken years to repay. "This must be a mistake," she told Prisa, who had become both her right hand and trusted friend. "Or a miracle," Prisha replied, eyebrows raised. "Either way, you should call Mr. Kapoor." But Rohan had become increasingly elusive, their late-night conversations dwindling as Crumb and Honey flourished. His congratulatory messages arrived via his assistant, and his promised visits to the patisserie never materialized that evening. Delilah impulsively took a taxi to the Somerset Foundation offices, determined to understand this unexpected gift and Rohan's sudden distance. The foundation's offices were quiet after hours, but light spilled from beneath Rohan's door. She knocked tentatively. "Come in," he called, surprise registering on his face when she entered. "Delilah, I wasn't expecting you." "Why did the foundation forgive my loan?" she asked without preamble. He set down his pen. "The board reviewed your case and determined that your success warranted." "Please don't lie to me," she interrupted. "The board didn't make this decision, did they?" Rohan's carefully maintained composure faltered. "No," he admitted. "It was my decision." "Why?" "Because your talent deserves full freedom to grow without constraints." She placed the notification on his desk. "This isn't just business for you, is it?" "None of it has been." The silence between them stretched, filled with unspoken truths. "No," he finally said, his voice quiet. "It hasn't." "Then why have you been avoiding me?" He stood, moving to the window overlooking the nighttime cityscape. "Because I've crossed a line professionally. The foundation's investments should be objective, not influenced by personal feelings." "Personal feelings," she echoed. "I care for you, Delilah, more than is appropriate given our arrangement." She stepped closer. "What if there was no arrangement? What if I was just a woman who made desserts, and you were just a man who enjoyed them?" "But that's not our reality." He turned to face her. "People will say I orchestrated everything, the gala, the funding to gain your affection, or worse, that you used my interest to secure backing for your business. Since when do you care what people say?" she challenged. "Since it might hurt you." He moved back to his desk, opening a drawer and withdrawing a newspaper. This arrived today. The business section featured a small article speculating about Rohan Kapoor's unusually personal investment in a new questioning whether romantic entanglement had influenced his typically shrewd business judgment. "This is just the beginning," he said. If there's anything between us, your reputation, everything you've built, could be undermined." Delilah studied him for a long moment. "There's something you're not telling me." Rohan sighed, gestures suddenly weary. "My father was like me, an investor who fell in love with a woman whose business he supported. When they divorced, the press destroyed her, claimed she'd manipulated him, that her success was unearned. She never recovered professionally. He looked directly at Delilah. I won't risk doing that to you. So you made a unilateral decision about us, without consulting me. There is no us, Delilah. That's the point I'm making. She felt something crack inside her chest. You know what hurts more than gossip? Having someone believe you're too fragile to make your own choices. She turned toward the door. Thank you for your investment, Mr. Kapoor. I'll be sure the foundation receives its returns. Recipe for forever. 3 months passed. Crumb and Honey thrived, expanding to include a small wholesale operation supplying select restaurants. Delilah worked relentlessly, channeling heartache into creativity, producing new confections that critics hailed as transcendent and emotionally evocative. She ignored the business section of newspapers and declined invitations to events where Rohan might appear. Yet reminders persisted, the antique copper whisk still hanging in her kitchen, the jasmine tea they'd shared during late conversations, still stocked on her shelves. One rainy Tuesday, Prisha burst into the kitchen, eyes wide. You need to see this. She thrust her tablet into Delilah's flour-dusted hands. On screen was a press release announcing Rohan Kapoor's resignation as chairman of the Somerset Foundation. What? Delilah whispered. There's more. Prisha swiped to a business news site. He's sold most of his holdings. No one knows why. For days, speculation swirled through financial circles. Then, during morning prep, the patisserie door chimed despite the closed sign. Rohan stood there, raindrops glistening in his hair, looking simultaneously familiar and changed. Gone was the tailored suit, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. You're closed, he noted awkwardly. Apparently not, she replied. Pulse quickening traitorously, he approached the counter, placing a folder between them. These are documents transferring all foundation interests in Crumb and Honey to you. Free and clear. No conditions, no expectations. I saw the news, she said, about your resignation. I needed to make a change. Silence stretched between them, filled with the scent of baking bread and vanilla. I made a mistake, Delilah, he finally said. Not in helping you, that was the best decision I ever made, but in walking away afterward. Why did you really leave the foundation? Because I built my life around what made financial sense, what protected my assets and reputation. But after meeting you, he gestured at the warm space she'd created. You build your life around what nourishes your soul. I want that courage. And now, she asked, guarding her heart. Now I'm starting over. A small investment firm, focusing on businesses I believe in. No publicity, no board to answer to. He hesitated. And I'm hoping for a second chance with you, not as an investor or benefactor, but just as a man who misses conversation with someone who understands him. Delilah studied him, seeing vulnerability beneath his composed exterior. I'm still angry with you, she admitted. I deserve that. And I'm not interested in secret relationships. If you're worried about public perception, I'm not, he interrupted. Not anymore. I'd shout it from rooftops if that's what you wanted. A smile tugged at her lips despite herself. Maybe start with dinner, as equals this time. The city's annual food and wine festival arrived 6 months later. Crumb and Honey's booth featured a special creation, a complex dessert incorporating elements from each chapter of Delilah's journey, her father's shortbread recipe, techniques learned in culinary school, flavors that spoke of late-night conversations and new beginnings. Beside her stood Ro, sleeves rolled up, helping serve customers with the ease of someone who had found his place. The newspaper on a nearby table featured a small article about the unlikely partnership between a pastry chef and a former investment mogul who now funded community culinary programs together. Any regrets? Delilah asked him during a quiet moment. Gesturing toward his simpler life, Rohan took her flour-dusted hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. Only that I wasted time trying to protect you from choices that were yours to make. As the festival lights twinkled on, they served their creations side by side to people who had discovered that the most valuable investments aren't measured in dividends or market shares, but in the courage to recognize what truly matters, even when it arrives in unexpected ways.